Hey, decision makers. Want to stay in the loop with exclusive content and the opportunity to be on the show? Text DECIDE to 218-432-9722 now, and let's get connected today.
A lot of times we can't connect the dots until we're looking back. We don't even know what our next step is going to be moving forward, like I said, but you have to keep moving forward, and then it'll all make sense when you look back. There's never a perfect time to start a business, whether it's a nonprofit or for-profit, but take the first step today.
Welcome to the Just a Decision podcast, where we speak to our guests about the decisions they made in life, the good, the bad, the regrets, the decisions they're currently making, and the decisions they're going to make for the future. Subscribe, like, comment on the video, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. And remember, we're available on all streaming platforms. Today, I have the honor of introducing a good friend of mine, Mr. Mike Rowe.
Josh, good to see you again. It's been too long. I appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah. Is it Mike or Michael?
I'll answer to either one.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
Cool. The first question is like a off-topic type of thing. Do you ever get, are you related to the Dirty Job?
I knew that was going to come up at some point. No, I'm not related to him. And so my last name is actually pronounced Rowe. Oh. But I stopped telling people that years ago because Mike Rowe is so famous. Yeah. And I get that all. I'm sure we'll talk about it. But I used to work I was an EMT, worked at Jefferson. Okay. And sometimes a patient would be coming in, you hear an overhead, Dirty Jobs, room 10, we got a critical one. I'm like, really, guys? So, yeah. No, I'm not related to him.
Okay, cool. We start the show with two questions. The first one is, what's your favorite dish and from where?
What's my favorite dish?
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest with you, I would say probably just about anything my wife cooks. Oh, okay. And I'm not just saying that because I know she's going to see this, but she is a phenomenal cook. So trying to keep the pounds off, being married to her has been a challenge. Okay. There's a lot of things she makes. If I had to pick just one favorite food, you'll have be an Oreo cookie.
The plain old Oreo, or like they got all the new flavors now?
The double stuff, whatever, either one, any of them. Okay.
And then second question is, someone gives you a blank check. Any number you write on it, it's cash in the next day, and your checking is not your savings. What's the first thing you would buy?
I don't know. There's a lot of things. I don't want to be selfish, you know? I mean, if I was going to be selfish and it was for an unlimited amount of money, I'd say, give me a private jet. I always thought that would, well, I've never even been on one, but they look pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
But to be more practical right now, I would say, I'd say a home.
Nice.
You know, I know my wife and I want to get our own place soon, so a home.
Cool. Nah, it's okay to be selfish. Most people are not selfish when it comes to the question, but I'm like, you don't want anything else, but it's okay. I know this is going to be public. Right now, we're getting a good amount of viewers, but soon we'll get those millions and millions of views.
Oh, it's a matter of time.
Cool. What was little Michael Rowe like? Like as far back as you can remember?
That's funny. I've gone through, I'd say several different pretty big changes, eras in my life. Up until I was about 12 years old, well, through sixth grade, I was one of the shyest people you'd ever know.
Wow.
I mean, I remember I had one of my first girlfriends, per se. I knew she would go down the one hallway at the end of the day, and I'd be sometimes too embarrassed to see her because someone told me that she wanted to give me a kiss. So I would go down the other hallway. So I was just so quiet. I was in no trouble at all. And then for whatever reason, the switch flipped when I was in junior high, and I was not shy, and I got in a good bit of trouble for several years. Okay. I kind of was like the polar opposite of that for a while.
Do you always remember being shy, or was there like a certain memory that shyness kicked in?
If you talk to my family, they said literally it was like a switch flipped for whatever reason. Okay. I've got a few ideas maybe why, but between 6th and 7th grade, I stopped being shy and all. I was picked on too when I was younger because I was so shy. I wouldn't stand up for myself. I would stand up for myself.
Gotcha.
So,
did you have any siblings?
I have a younger brother.
Okay.
He's 4 years younger than me.
Okay. So it was when you couldn't like call your older brother, older sister to take care of those problems. Okay. How was it being the older sibling?
I mean, hopefully I was a good older brother. I guess you'd have to, my brother's name's David. I guess you probably have to ask him about that. But it was nice. It was nice having a sibling. Matter of fact, I was always kind of jealous of of families that had like 5, 6, a bunch of kids, especially around the holidays and birthdays. It's just like the chaos. I have some friends.
Mm-hmm.
You go over to their house and there's a ton of siblings. I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah. It's cool to see those pictures where like you'll see the grandparents and then it's like the nieces, the nephew, the kids.
You got like a whole army.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like, oh, that's cool. It was, cause I don't have kids right now, but I was talking to a friend of mine. He's like, Josh, why don't you have kids yet? And then the scariest thing ever, he was like, who's going to take care of you when you're older? And I'm like, oh man, I didn't even think about stuff like that when getting old.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, last thing I want to do is end up in a home for old people.
That'd be no good.
Cool. So what was, where'd you grow up?
I was born in Chicago.
Okay.
We moved from there when I was probably almost 5 years old.
Okay.
Then I've lived in Westchester, Downingtown, Philadelphia. I've kind of been at Westchester for a little bit. I've been all over the place.
Okay. In school, what was besides education? Is there anything extracurricular activities you were involved with?
Yeah, I played virtually every sport you can think of.
Okay.
I wasn't good at them at all. Of them. I was okay at some of them.
Okay.
I played baseball, football, played soccer when I was real young. I ran track, boxed for years. Actually, I boxed at Upper Darby for a while.
Okay.
In my late teens, early 20s, until I was in a bad car accident. I had a brain bleed, and they were like, no more boxing, can't do that anymore. Yeah, believe it or not, you wouldn't know looking at me now. I boxed at 156 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to be pro. I was doing good. I was 10-1 when I couldn't box anymore. I loved it. So I've done a lot of sports, but soccer I was terrible at. Baseball I was pretty terrible at. Boxing and track were the two I was all right at.
Okay. Yeah, everybody says they could box, but then they talk about a street fight. But like in-ring boxing, the one time I did boxing for a little bit, and they wanted me to spar with this guy.
Yeah.
Third round, I was done. I was like, I have no lungs. My arms, there's no strength in my arms. I'm like, how do you keep going?
Well, it's funny you say that. So my Coach Jim was after I'd been boxing for maybe, I don't know, like 3 or 4 months, I thought I knew it. I was like, I could conquer the world. I could beat Mike Tyson if he was. I just thought I could beat anybody. And there was this former pro guy. He was maybe 7, 8 years older than me, Irish guy. And I kept telling Coach Jim, I was like, I want to spar with him. He kept telling me, Mike, you're not ready. And I think finally he just got sick of my bullshit. I was like, all right, I'm going to let him fight. So I came in, and normally we'd warm up for a while, then we'd spar, we'd do some other stuff. I came in, he's just like, glove up. I'm like, who am I fighting? I'm fighting this guy. I will never forget this fight. He hit me so hard. My legs were wobbly. He broke my nose, and within like 2 minutes, I had 2 black eyes. And that was a good experience, a humbling experience. Yeah. I was like, that's why Jim didn't want me to fight this guy. He was right. I'm not ready to fight him.
Was it headgear or like straight?
Oh, headgear.
Okay. And still got your nose.
Beat my ass.
Cool. So elementary school into high school. How was that process or thought feeling?
What do you mean? As far as what?
So the transition from going into elementary to high school. So like, usually other people have their older siblings that gave them that advice, or you knew someone that knew someone in the high school. Did you have any of that?
I mean, I knew a lot of people in the area. I had gone to the school for a while, the school district for a while. Like I said, between 6th and 7th grade, I don't know if I know exactly what it was. That switch just flipped. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm not going to be shy. I'm not going to get picked on. But where I kind of went really downhill for a while is I got involved with the wrong people. Mm. I keep a picture with me. I look at it once in a while just to kind of keep me in check. It's the day I graduated high school, barely graduated high school. Maybe about 15, 16 of us in that picture. Mm-hmm. And every single person except for me and one gentleman who's a history teacher now is either dead or in jail.
Wow.
So I really, really went down the wrong route and missed a lot of opportunities. And I'm grateful for the people who didn't give up on me, who absolutely should have. I mean, my parents being some of them, but I had, shout out to Mr. Hurley. He was one teacher specifically who really took me under his wing and absolutely refused to give up on me. I went back years later and I shook his hand. I just told him, I was like, I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for you. Wow. Like, he refused to give up on me. So
that's cool. it's good that you had Mr. Hurley. Were your parents like? What was your parents' involvement in you getting in trouble?
I mean, they were doing everything they can. It
Mhm.
wasn't until years later that I found out. I mean, my father had to go talk to the school board, talk to teachers, like, please do not kick my son out. And I was I was a knucklehead. I was out
Yeah.
of control. It's not something I'm proud of. Like
Mhm.
I was a little asshole, you know. But I think that's that's part of the period that shaped me into who I am, which is one of the reasons I fight so hard for people who are going through rough times, whether it be a student in our mentorship program that's really struggling, that virtually everybody else has given up on, or it's a cancer patient and family who has exhausted all of the resources and they've got nowhere left to turn. And that's why Legacy of Hope takes some of the most complex cases that everybody else just kind of says there's nothing else to do for this family. I'm like, no, there is.
It's cool.
You know, I've had many conversations with patients, just like I'm talking to you now, and you know, they'll tell me some of the most horrendous stories and you know, just situations they're in, and I'll say, I don't know exactly what we're gonna do. And unfortunately, I can't go through this for you, but I'm going to go through it with you. We're going to fight together and we're going to get through this. So,
Nice. In terms of I don't like labels, but you could say in high school, were you a troubled youth, as they say?
oh, 100%.
Okay. How were academics? Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, how did this all transpire?
So academically, to about 11th grade, I was able to be a knucklehead and still kind of keep my grades up.
Okay.
I think it was 11th grade. I was in, is AP computer programming.
Oh wow.
12th grade. I don't know why they let me do this. I was in intro to keyboarding and I failed.
Wow.
Like I was 12th grade. I'll have to look for a picture, see if I'll send it to you. I had a leopard print mohawk at the time.
Wow.
Like I don't even have enough hair to grow that anymore. But yeah. So I was academically, I definitely threw a lot of opportunities academically and sports wise, just kind of down the drain.
Okay. Did you grow out of that troubled troubled era like your senior year of high school, or did it follow you after high school?
It followed me for about I don't know, maybe probably about 3-4 years.
Okay. So nowadays, a lot of kids stay home. Were you bad enough where your parents kept you in the household, or did they say fly and figure it out on yourself?
Oh, I was kicked out of my house left and right, and
Okay.
I remember, but I thought I was slick.
Mhm.
If I needed something or I was hungry, and you know, I always had a key with me. I come back in.
Okay.
So my dad got smart. He started changing the locks. He's
Wow.
like, "Yeah, no, we're not doing this." I mean, kudos to them. That's like I said, they went well above and beyond what any parent should have to do for their kids.
Okay.
I was a mess.
Yeah. How did you, I guess, survive without having the household of your mom and dad and siblings for support? Like, besides your friends that weren't so good of friends.
It's I mean, it's by the grace of God.
Mm.
Again, I'm still here. It really is. And I always had the support of my family,
Okay.
but it was like one of my dad's rules is like, he's like, I know you're in a lot of trouble, but if you bring your trouble to my doorstep and now I have to worry about the rest of our family, your brother and my mom, like you're not here anymore, you know? So, I mean, he had to make that tough decision. So I always had their support.
Okay.
But yeah, I had really close friendships. You know, I mean, we had true like ride or die friends. You know, so I mean, I was fortunate. Fortunately, a lot of these friends they weren't on the right path either.
Yeah.
You know.
So, in terms of I guess jobs, did you have any jobs in this time frame of your life?
So I did.
Okay.
I started working. I was either 10 or 12 years old. I was a paper boy. I delivered papers for the Daily Local News. Even got Paper Boy of the Month one time.
Wow.
And that's another blessing. Through all of this, I always kept jobs and worked really, really hard. I think that was kind of an outlet for me too. When my personal life was just spiraling out of control, I could just focus at least on work, like everything I had. So yeah, I was either 10 or 12. Started delivering papers. I was mowing people's lawns, doing whatever. Ended up getting a job at Target, worked in the back room, the stock room.
Okay.
And then at the time, I assume they still are a good company, but Target was a wonderful company, really promoting from within. Ended up getting promoted several times. At the time I was 20, I was an operations executive. I had maybe like 50, 60 people working for me.
Wow.
Learned a lot. Had a couple executives that really take me under their wing. So learned a lot there. So yeah, work-wise, I had a lot of, early on, I had a lot of really good experiences, learned a lot from a lot of people who'd been successful in that area of their life.
Okay. Yeah, I find like the common theme of after high school is usually you go to the workforce, military, entrepreneur, or college.
Yeah.
So your decision was to have these jobs
Oh,
to
there was no college in this country that would
okay.
have taken me to the grades I had.
Okay.
And I thought, at the time, I thought I was rich as could be. I mean, I seen that paycheck, and
Mhm.
I mean, I'm trying to think. Around the time I graduated high school, I think I was working on the docks as a receiver, so
Okay.
I wasn't making just entry level pay. Certainly wasn't great money, but at the
Mhm.
time, I was like, man, I got money for whatever. I thought I could just coast and keep doing that.
Okay.
Didn't take me long to realize, like, you're not actually making a ton of money.
Cool. So after Target, what was life's routes? Where'd you go next?
Around this whole time, I started boxing.
Mhm.
Um, like I said, I had done sports. I'd been in sports since I was a little kid. Started boxing, loved boxing, and started doing pretty well. I thought, maybe I could make this into at least a part-time job, or start actually making some decent money.
Mhm.
Um, so in a really roundabout way, I started working on cars. I've had so many different careers. Ended up working at a Acura garage in Westchester,
Okay.
and I was a ASC certified mechanic there.
What's
And
ASC?
it's certification. I don't
Okay.
even remember what it is. It's like you
Okay.
can get ASC certified in brakes, suspension, and
Okay.
things like that. Um, so that was a decent paying job, but the reason I did that because it afforded me the time I needed to be able to go into Upper Darby almost every day to train, to fight. Um, and then that all came crashing down when I was in a bad car accident.
Oh
Matter of
man.
fact, I used to I had a sport bike. I
Okay.
had multiple sport bikes over the years, and I was always losing my license. And this is one of the times I lost my license. So I was supposed to be with my girlfriend at the time and a bunch of friends at the mountain. We were going to go snowboarding. And so my girlfriend, Michelle, at the time, picked me up at the Acura garage. So I didn't have a license again. And we were going to go to the mountains. And a guy in a pickup truck, I don't remember any of this, ran a red light. This is what got me in the medical field.
Okay.
Ran a red light. According to the news reports, it made like the front page news.
Wow.
Hit the car I was in at about 60 miles an hour, flipped it over. They had to cut me out. Apparently, I stopped breathing on the scene.
Wow.
They flew me to HUP. I was in ICU for a week. To this day, I don't remember being there. Kind of forget where we were going, but anyway. So
Yeah, nah. Well,
that's what.
one, I appreciate that. I'm glad you're still here because it seems like that was a
Oh,
serious
that's how I
accident.
had to stop. I had to stop boxing, and
Okay.
it was so I had a lacerated liver, kidney, spleen, partially collapsed lung, chipped vertebrae, and a brain bleed.
Wow.
And initially, the team at HUP told my parents, your son's got to move back in. He probably will never be able to live by himself again. I couldn't count the fingers of my own hand when I got out. I remember seeing a neurologist shortly after I got out of the ICU. This I do remember. It's Dr. Kelly. And he said, start with 100, subtract 7, keep subtracting 7. And I remember looking at my hands, trying to figure it out. And I was like, I knew enough. It scared the hell out of me because I knew enough to know this was a really simple question, but I had no idea how to figure out what 100 minus 7 was. So I had to move back in with my parents for a while. And that was a tough time. A lot of self-reflection. What am I going to do? I can't box. Everything. I mean, the job I had, I was only doing really at that time because it gave me the time I needed to train full time to try to be a professional boxer. So I started, well, what do I like? What do I like doing? And a few months after I was still living at my parents' house, because uh, it's pretty common for head injuries just have pretty severe fatigue. I remember if I got up to get a glass of water, go to the bathroom, whatever, I mean, I'd have to sleep for hours after. I was so tired.
Wow. I
was slowly able to get out, walk 1 block, walk 2 blocks. And I went down to a local fire station. I was like, maybe I can be like an EMT or something. And I got an application there, and they ended up, they said, we'll reimburse you to go to EMT school if you pass and you volunteer for us. And that's how I got into that. And I never turned back. I loved working in the medical field. I started volunteering on the ambulance, and I started working in Coatesville City on the ambulance, which really is where I kind of um, really got my wings and got comfortable, because that was a pretty crazy place to work. And then I ended up getting a job at Jefferson. I worked in the ER and trauma unit there for 10 years.
Cool.
So yeah, it's been a fun journey.
Cool. I know you said it sounds like your family loved you from a distance in that time of you were trying to, I guess, figure out life.
Yeah,
You having to go back home, what was that family dynamic life? Or like,
they were great. I have
okay.
I have nothing but, I mean, they've been nothing but supportive parents. Again, it was my BS when I was
Mhm.
younger, but at this time I had been out of, like, it was long enough. Yeah, I mean, I have a great relationship with my parents,
Cool.
and they were fine. I mean, there's a lot of frustration, but that was stemming from, well, a couple of things. One, gosh, like, I'm an adult, I'm having to move back home, like, this sucks,
Yeah.
and two, being really scared, thinking, am I ever going to be right in the head again? Am I ever going to be able to count the fingers in my hand? Am I ever going to be able to support myself and work again?
Yeah.
So that was a pretty traumatic experience.
Cool. Going through that trauma, did you speak to anybody, or it was like trying to figure out, I guess, all the medical stuff going on? What was that like?
Um, you mean to speak to someone as far as what?
Like I guess going through an accident and almost losing your life and having I guess relying on your family. Was there anybody else that you talked to going through this time?
Looking back, one of the biggest mistakes I've made is that now I've never. I mean, I certainly should have gone to some sort of counseling or
Mhm.
talk, and I didn't. I didn't, and I think that's why some of the, I'll call it trauma, for
Mhm.
lack of a better term, growing up, some of the things I saw and did and was part of, like, I never. I think I carried that with me way longer than I should have or needed to, because I never work through that. I just
Yeah.
was kind of like, I'm going to buckle down back to, I'm just going to focus on work. I'm going to focus on work. Whatever I do, I'm going to get really good at,
Mhm.
and that was, which is fine now. It's enough time between now and when I was, like, really going through it.
Mhm.
But so no, I didn't. I should have.
Okay. Um, the healing process. Did you heal pretty quickly because to make that decision to go to EMT school, is it physical, the training, or
You, the train, the training for EMT school, you mean,
yeah, so
or?
you said you started walking the 1 block, the 2 block, and 3 block, and then you ended up at the
So
firehouse.
I was at that time I was also going to, I think it was at Bryn Mawr Rehab. I was also going to, I had to go to cognitive rehab,
Okay.
because, like I told you, I couldn't, when I first got out, I couldn't do simple things like basic math, basic subtraction, like really simple stuff. And about a 6, 7 month time.
Mm.
I mean, I even met with some of the medical staff that saw me at HUP years later, and they're like, "You made a recovery that we very rarely see."
Wow.
I mean, again, the reason I moved back, I mean, my there's family friends that came, were even trying to turn one of their back rooms in my bedroom, because their thought process at the time was, he's probably going to live with us until we're too old to take care of him, and then I'll have to go into, like, a group home or something. So it was about a 6, 7 month period till physically and mentally I was back and able to, function again.
Wow. Well, again, I'm glad I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're what's the term? Bodied abled or full abled, that you're up and around and
Yeah. Well, it's surreal, because, again, I had that head injury. I have no recollection of the accident or even being in the ICU. Um, so there, like I said, it made the front page newspaper that I still have, and there's a
wow.
picture of my girlfriend Michelle. Her car is a blue Honda CRV, upside down. Firefighters and everything, like, cutting us out. I'm like, that's weird. Like, no recollection of that.
Wow. That's
So
sounds like a wild experience. So going through the EMT training, how was that going through all that
that was fun. I never look back. I mean, I think one of the common threads of my life. I mean, I've had different careers. I've had high highs. I've had low lows, and everything in between. Is I I function well in a chaotic environment.
Mm.
Whether that chaotic environment is being in the boxing ring with someone who's trying to knock my head off, breaking my nose,
Yeah.
or working in an ER, or riding a sport bike at 170 miles an hour down 322. Um, so I think that's one of the reasons I really took to emergency medicine, and I enjoyed it. I had some really good people that, again, took me under their wing. There's a couple paramedics, one of which was also a groomsman in my wedding.
Nice.
Grant Rounds, thank you. Someone who saw something in me, and they kind of laughed. They was like, at first, I was like, oh, this guy just must be a real dork. Like, I would go in and I would write down, like, I'd make diagrams and write down everything that was in the ambulance because I didn't want to forget. I didn't want to be in charge of someone who was real sick and real hurt and screw up and not know what I was supposed to know, and maybe they didn't make it because I didn't do my job. So I mean, I took it, even when I was a volunteer, I always took that really seriously. But man, I loved it, and I used to get nervous too because I don't know if you've ever been in a firehouse, but obviously it's 911. You don't know when what we call the tones are going to drop. You're going to get a call and might be watching TV, hanging out, throwing a football, and then these loud, like, kind of tones or sirens go off, and it'll say, attention, whatever, medic 42 or firehouse, whatever. You have a 35-year-old male, multiple gunshot wounds to the chest on Lancaster Avenue, and every time I hear that, my heart would just like, oh my gosh, this is it, and after a while, you get used to it, you train and you prepare for that. But it was fun. It was, I mean, I'm not, like I said, I was nervous in the beginning, very nervous, but I grew to really, really enjoy it.
Okay. The person watching or listening, and they're thinking about, EMT, what's some tips or what's something now about being EMT that you wish you knew when you first got into the career?
Couple of things. I think it's really important, and this goes with really any career. If you can find someone that is successful in your career, that's willing to invest time in you, that's so important. Help you miss a lot of potholes.
Okay.
That way your whole career or getting ready to go into a career isn't trial by fire.
Yeah.
So I would say, regardless of what career you want to go into, find someone, again, who's successful. There's a lot of people talk out there, but then you look at what they do, it's like, you've never done that. How are you telling me how to do this?
Yeah.
So find someone who's successful in that area, and wants to invest time in you, and just work hard. Okay. It's any career, if you're going to be good at it, there's going to be sacrifices. There's no career that you can be and that you can really make a difference and get good at without making sacrifices. That's just part of the game.
Yeah. Is there like a experience where you got a call to a job and that you can remember and you're like, I did a good job?
So there was a couple. There's one that went negative for me where I knew I should have done better. There was a patient who was strapped down to a backboard because we thought they might have a C-spine injury. And then she got nauseous, started vomiting, and the one medic was kind of rolled her to the side on the board, and I was by the suction. It took me I fumbled for a couple seconds to put the suction together, and that's when I got real serious about, like I said, going in there, writing everything down, practicing, because I didn't ever want to fumble again. Yeah. Like I remember going home that night really angry, as I should have been, really angry at myself. So that was one. And the second one was when I was volunteering, they called it, when you got to a certain point where I could be in the back of the ambulance by myself with a patient or patients, and I didn't have to have someone kind of looking out over me. A lot of times it'd go out, it would be just me and whoever's driving the ambulance. They said, okay, you got your primary. It's just what that ambulance company called it. And we went out on a call, and they called that I got my primary. I felt really good. It was a lady who was having an allergic reaction, and she was having a lot of difficulty breathing. And I remember, helping her in the back. And when you're in the ambulance, you almost always call invariably you call the hospital you're going to, and with a serious call like that, usually you talk to what they call a command physician. You talk to the doctor, say, hey, this is who we are, this is what we have coming in, so they get ready for it. This is our ETA. And after that, I got my primary, and I felt good about that. I was like, okay, I'm getting to a point. I've studied hard enough. I've worked hard enough that I can actually be of use, and I can help people when they're in a really bad situation.
Nice. Is it like to get your primary? Is it like a checklist, or is it when you know type of thing?
For us there, again, I'm sure every station has a little bit different variation of this, but where I was, this was Minquist in Downingtown.
Okay.
You had to have like one of the captains had to ride along with you. We were always with someone, but to get your primary per se, it had to be, I believe, one of the captains that kind of checked us off and said, yes, like from beginning to end, you managed this difficult or complex case yourself. You did well, everything from patient care to talking to the command doctor. So it was there was no checklist. It was kind of it was their intuition.
Okay.
And these are men and women who've been doing this for years, very seasoned. And they knew like you're ready or you're definitely not ready. So
Cool. It's like in that black belt maybe in jujitsu or something where you're
yeah.
like, this feels good.
Yeah.
Cool. So so the firehouse is where you started your medical career?
Yeah, I started volunteering. I was in Downingtown, Minquist. Then I ended up. One of the gentlemen who worked there was also an EMT and a manager. I don't remember his exact title, but effectively he was a manager in Coatesville, and asked me. And I remember people telling me like, not only it was on South 4th Avenue at the time. I don't know if it's still there. It was a rough area in Coatesville City. I mean, it was pretty common to. I mean. On a typical shift, you have, I mean, everything from bad car accidents to shootings to overdoses. And I mean, it was a serious place to be an EMT. I was at the point already, I got kind of like in a good way, a point of no return where my why was more important than why I wanted to do this was more important than me being nervous about screwing up or embarrassing myself or failing. So I ended up working there for a while. And then it's kind of as a joke. I mean, I don't even know if I was looking for jobs at the time purposefully, but I saw a job online for an ER tech at Jefferson at the ER trauma unit. And I was looking at all the requirements. I was like, remember, I was an EMT, not for a real long time at this point. I mean, I think I was good for how long I've been doing it, but there's a whole lot of stuff I didn't know. And I remember it was like, can you interpret EKGs? I'm like, I don't even know how to do one, let alone interpret what, it was like, know how to do this? No. I was like, I'm going to apply for this for fun. Completely forgot about it. I was in the Staples parking lot months later. I don't remember how much after I applied this was, but it was a sunny day. I got in my car. I was in the Staples parking lot and I got a call and I had forgotten about this. Like, oh, you still interested in this job? I was like, what? Huh? And then I was like, oh, yes, I am interested. And so maybe a week or two later, I had 3 interviews that day.
Wow.
And
for the same position?
Yeah, so I interviewed with HR as a as a quick interview, and that went okay. And that's pretty much, yes, like, have you, are you homicidal? No. Do you have your security, just little things. That was more of just administrative.
Yeah.
Then I had to do, and I remember this like I'm talking to you, and this was years ago now, because I started in 2007. I got walked through one of the paramedics, very seasoned paramedics, ended up being good friends with him, walked me through the ER, and as he's kind of showing me around, he's firing off questions. You know how to do this? No, but I will learn. I'm good at learning, and I'm committed to learning. And after the 4th or 5th question, he asked me, do you know how to do this? And I said, or have you done this? I said, no. He turned around and he said, you realize we just don't hand jobs out to everyone, right?
Wow.
I thought, man, I'm not getting this job. And I was like, right then I was like, not getting the job. I wouldn't have blamed them either. I had no experience doing half the stuff they wanted, because really you function more as a paramedic, not an EMT. I mean, we started IVs. We did triaging. There's a lot of stuff that you didn't do as an EMT that you did as an ER tech.
Okay.
And then my third, I interviewed with Adrian Sheen, at the time was ER manager. That went pretty well. But again, I went home. I took the train home. I was like, that was fun, but I'll never see that place again. Lo and behold, I got the job.
Nice.
And this is a lesson I think I would. Well, actually, I've talked to many people about it, but this was a really important lesson for me. I was the first that I know of. And I believe I was the first EMT to get a job at Jefferson in Center City. Everybody else there, except for I think one guy who transferred in from security, they were all paramedics.
Wow.
So their skill set and scope was far beyond what mine was, which is fine. And I was fine with that. I knew they're going there, that was going to be the case. And again, this is funny looking back because I became really good friends with the people I worked with. But they were brutal to me in the beginning. You got set up with a preceptor, and I remember, like, she would just in the beginning almost refuse to show me stuff. She was like, would tell me her name was Sarah. I won't say her last name. She's a really good person. She's like, you are wasting our time. Why did you even apply for this job? I remember no one would want to work with me.
Wow.
And patients would come in, they'd like, get the hell out of here, you know? But again, back to my why, it was, I knew I loved this. I knew I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted to be in the medical field. So I thought, if I can't get by this, like, this is going nowhere. Like, I got to figure this out. So a few days into being precepted by Sarah, again, great person, great, very talented paramedic. I looked at her and I told her, I said, this clearly isn't working. I said, you have no desire to teach me, precept me. I said, I have no desire to be precepted by someone who doesn't want to precept me. So I walked to the charge nurse, realized I'm like brand new. No one knows, really, the people I'm working with don't like me because they feel like I'm wasting their time. And this is a busy ER. So like, I'm taking the place right now of someone who does know what they're doing. And he's just really screwing things up, by being here. I went to the charge nurse and I said, this isn't going to work. I said, either you got to fire me or I need someone else who wants to teach me. So they ended up pairing me with someone else. And a few months later, like, I worked hard. It was about an hour, 5-minute train commute each way because I had a home out in Downingtown at the time. And I would study the entire time, talk to everybody I could talk to. And I got really proficient at starting IVs and triaging patients and doing everything else. And I mean, and the rest is history. It ended up being a wonderful job that I learned so much, made so many good friendships. But I say this all to say, when there's going to be embarrassing moments. There's going to be moments where everybody around you, like, is maybe, why are you here? You don't deserve to be here. Like, if you really want it, you got to find a way to keep going. You got to find, I had every reason. Like I said, I initially even applied for the job just as a joke. I was like, I'm not qualified for this, but I knew how bad I wanted it.
Cool. So, was it a 12-hour shift?
Typically, almost all. Yeah. Most shifts were 12
your
hours.
Day was, you had like 14-hour days with that commute.
Oh, easy.
Wow.
Easy.
How did you, I guess, balance having I don't want to use the word horrible, but like not the best preceptor. So having a trouble with the 12-hour shift and then going back home to study. What was your like thought process in that time of, I guess, learning or being able to do the job?
Stopping or failing never really crossed my mind. I was like, I'm just going to keep going. To me, it was already a foregone conclusion. And that wasn't because I felt so confident, hey, I'm so smart or I'm so this or that. It was just, I want this. And short of me not breathing anymore, I'm going to continue to keep going.
Cool.
So I was just really passionate and motivated to do it.
Cool. I've never experienced the medical field besides working at Lord's as security. But in my background in law enforcement, the first time I had that uneasy feeling is Narcaning somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Because they say, here's a Narcan. All you got to do is put it in your nose and push it. And then when you have to do it, you're like, oh, man, I really got to do it. And you're tapping around to see if you really got it. And then you got it. And then the craziest part is watching how the Narcan reacted with the patient. And they just get up and walk off. And you're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So just that little feeling alone, I couldn't imagine being in the medical field 3 to 4 days a week, 12-hour shifts. Yeah. I know you went through some
well, one of the
stuff.
Things we couldn't do right away, but was really exciting, I ended up just really just embracing it, was getting to work in trauma. Like, I didn't get to work in trauma until I'd probably been there for at least a year. Like, maybe I could go in and stock a couple of things, but actually, so how that was set up in trauma, again, we were level 1 trauma unit. So we'd get some of the worst traumas, everything from.
What's an example of like trauma 1?
Oh, I mean, a really bad car accident with someone's arm missing, or someone shot in the head and shot in the chest, like really bad.
Gotcha.
When what we call the highest acuity trauma, there was a level 1 trauma. Right below that was a level 1, was level 9. So depending on what level it was, we'll go with the level 1 for the highest acuity. You would have one of the techs at the bedside, one of the trauma nurses. Then you'd have another trauma nurse dictating, and then everybody else at the bedside is physicians and surgeons, and you'd all have certain jobs. One of the first things we'd have to do, unless the person that came in was already in cardiac arrest, was we'd have to get a manual blood pressure. And not only that, but you had to get that when people are yelling out orders. Sometimes the patients are screaming. And depending on what your blood pressure got, determined whether you stay and try to resuscitate that patient right there in trauma, or if you're able to take them up to an OR, or if you go right next door to the trauma OR, like completely dependent on your blood pressure.
What do you mean by manual?
Manual. So you put the manual cuff on, you got have the stethoscope on, and you're listening.
So it's not like the computer.
And let me tell you oh my gosh, when I was going through EMT training, I remember I sucked. I couldn't hear it. I couldn't hear the right thing. I remember thinking, how am I going to be in the medical field if I can't even hear blood pressure? So I get through that. I finally could do that, but I'd never learned to take manual blood pressures and like high intensity situations where this means like, are we going to the OR or can we stay here? And like having a trauma surgeon looking at you like, pressure now, what's the pressure? What's the pressure? And you have a group of 20, 30, OR nurses, trauma surgeons, residents, anesthesiologists, like banking, what's your pressure going to be? And if you say it's way lower, then they get everything ready for the OR and it's not low. It's like, you look like an asshole.
Oh, wow.
So it was a lot of things like that, but that was exciting, getting to learn to operate, to work in that sort of situation. And it was to a point where, you work with these same nurses and surgeons and physicians and residents like so often. Sometimes it'd be, when I say chaotic, it's just a lot of people working really quickly. If there's too many people yelling, something, that situation is not being managed well. But a lot of times you can just kind of look up at a glance and, all right, you keep going. You just, like, I know what you're doing. You know what I'm doing. We each have a very particular role there. So that was exciting. And back to the, sorry, I got so many stories.
You're good.
Back to, I said the tones would kind of drop when you were in an ambulance. Mm-hmm. So the same thing would happen for the level 1 traumas, level 9. You would hear attention Jefferson emergency room. This is going throughout the entire, it's about a block long, the ER and trauma unit. Mm-hmm. Attention Jefferson emergency room. You have a 39-year-old male, multiple gunshot wounds, medic 15 en route, ETA 2 minutes, and you'd kind of get ready and you're getting your trauma gown. And we had this one, they made it a level 1, and it was, what was it? I learned once in a while. So when the tones would drop, when you'd hear this is someone from dispatch in the city, and some of the times there'd be a communication issue, and it was I forget what it was. They said it was like some minor sounding injury, and we're like, why did they make this level 1s? Oh, it was injury from a fall, like 35-year-old male. Like, this can't be a level 1 trauma. Mm-hmm. However, Joe Portali was the physician at the time. Medics come running through the door in the trauma bay. This guy is gray. Looks like he's knocking on death's door. Quickly find out injury from a fall. He was a mechanic. He had a car up on a lift. The car fell off the lift and fell on him.
What?
That was, so he ended up surviving, but that was, I never forgot that too. It's like, don't always, like, what they say is coming in might not be what's coming in. This was not, this
that's a big communication.
That's a huge communication issue. So yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm glad that listening to you talk about high school and getting into this medical field and life started, I guess you could say, working out. What did you do after Jeff in the EMT?
So this is how I got into the nonprofit sector. Okay. Slow but sure. Well, like a lot of acute on chronic patients, like cancer patients specifically, you see them in the ER, maybe they go to the ICU, they go home, they're back in the ER, they're sick. And towards the last couple of years I was there was a 35-year-old Spanish woman who had stage 4 breast cancer. Her name was Sosa. Staff, absolutely, myself included, just loved her. We all adored her. She had stage 4 cancer, had mets to her lungs. She couldn't breathe. It was in her liver, so she had ascites. Her stomach was real swollen. And she had every reason to be upset and pissed off, but she was so funny. She was just never complaining. She's like, Josh, sit your ass down. You've been working too hard, Towards the end of her life, she lived with her older brother. She was too sick to take care of herself. And he was a really nice guy. I don't remember his name, but very stoked, never showed much emotion. And I was finishing up a 12-hour shift. Most of my shifts, last several years I was there, it was 7A to 7P. And I always had to run to the Market East train. Well, it's no longer the Market East train station. It's the Jefferson station. But put my backpack on and I was getting ready to run. And I saw Sosa's older brother standing outside the room she was in. He's just crying. And I was so atypical because this man showed virtually no emotion. So I walked over and said, "Hey, what's up? What's going on?" I said, "Let's go to the ASAP family room," which was an area we kind of usually would bring for situations like this, or if someone would die, we bring the family. They're just kind of off to the side, quiet. Yeah, it's privacy. And this was a conversation that changed the lens that I look through and experience life. I remember this conversation like I'm talking to you now. And the pain in that room that day in the ASF family room was palpable. Tears coming down his eyes. He said, "Mike, I know Sosa's going to die." He said, "But I can't take it." I said, "What do you mean you can't take what?" He said, "I have to listen to her struggle to breathe every night, and we can't afford the home oxygen that she needs." He said, "Because the insurance company will cover it and we can't pay for it." Um, and that shook me so much that night. That bothered me so much. I left that room. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I got to do something. And as a little aside here to kind of give you some context, at this point, I was still trying to finish my undergrad, as I could afford it. And I mean, I wanted to be a physician. I wanted to be an anesthesiologist. I wanted to work in the OR and the ICUs. And I left the room that day and I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I got to do something. Mind you, I don't have an MBA. I never had the opportunity to go to business school or anything like that. I thought, well, I've run since I was a kid. I was like, maybe I can run and somehow raise some money. And but I was thinking about this, just how can I fix this? What can I do? It's just, I was like, became obsessed with this. Started a small nonprofit that was fiscally sponsored by Jefferson called 11th Hour Racing.
What is it called?
11th Hour Racing.
Okay, 11th. Okay.
11th Hour, because these are patients. We were supporting patients and families that were in their 11th hour that were in really critical need of things. They were without, home oxygen. Their heat had been turned off. Their families were going hungry, which is still to this day what we specialize with Legacy of Hope. And I ended up leaving Jefferson, coming over to Camden. But before, kind of around this time, this transition, I realized things were really taking off. I was learning how to get like corporate sponsors,
nice,
and this and that. But I hit a glass ceiling, because I knew if we were going to be fiscally sponsored by Jefferson, and Jefferson has been amazing at supporting 11th Hour Racing, myself, and ultimately Legacy of Hope. But we couldn't expand, we couldn't start helping Penn patients and Temple patients if Jefferson's fiscally sponsoring us. Mm-hmm. And then geographically, when we want to go to other cities and other states. So I ended up, I founded Legacy of Hope in 2007. Well, Legacy of Hope officially became incorporated. We're corporation 2017. We got our 501c3 nonprofit status in 2018.
Nice.
And it's been a great journey. And again, having that why be so important that like quitting or stopping isn't even an issue. I had so many people who cared about me and loved me. So I was literally almost killing myself just because I'm still working a full-time job. I'm putting in 50, 60 hours a week at this, trying to get this off the ground. People are like, "Mike, just do this part-time." And my vision for this, I was like, I can't. I've got to do this full-time. I remember when things started taking off, like we now have a partner. We've had a partnership since February of 2020 with the Philadelphia Police.
Okay.
They pick up groceries at grocery stores that we have partnerships with, and they deliver about 2 weeks worth of groceries to cancer patients and their families across the city every single week. It's a wonderful partnership because, they don't charge us.
Wow.
And it's really good service. And there's been many times where, maybe at the last minute after we've coordinated the delivery with a patient, they're sick, they have to go to the emergency room and they're not there. Mm-hmm. Had so many times the officers will bring the food back to their house and they'll go on their own time the next day to deliver it. But we were trying to get this partnership started. Like I said, I worked my way up in Target, but I don't have an MBA or anything like that. and we're meeting with police leadership and executives there. And it was myself and Gina, who you know,
Mm.
one of the executives that works for and founding board members at Legacy of Hope. And we still laugh about this. Things were finally starting to move forward, and we thought we were going to be able to form a partnership with the police. One of the executives towards the end of the meeting, her name was Altavi, she said, okay, come up with an MOU, and we'll go over it next time we meet. All right, sounds good. Look forward to meeting with you guys. Gina and I get out of there. We look at each other. The hell is an MOU? Literally Googled it. It's a memorandum of understanding. I know what that is. I've written thousands of them out, but no idea. The most basic business things I didn't know. But again, my desire to be able to help these people who again have nowhere else to turn. You know, they've exhausted all other resources. One of the things that distinguishes Legacy of Hope from virtually any other organization, and there's a lot of other organizations doing a lot of good work for cancer patients, but there's a limit. Okay, you've got your $1,000 for the year, or usually it's financial limits or time limits. We've been supporting you for so many months. We do not have limits. We continue to support patients until they're able to get back on their feet. That's why a couple of years ago, I know I'm jumping all over the place here,
good.
but
I love the information.
We purchased and renovated a home in West Philly we use for free short-term housing for cancer patients and their families.
Wow.
Because prior to this, we'd get a lot of families that say, okay, we got help with rent for a couple of months, but they're back on their own now. We already stayed at this free housing. Now we're homeless. So the first family we moved in was a single mother, 4 had brain cancer, was days away from being evicted. And she's actually been there for a while. They're going to be moving out soon.
Wow.
But the reason is because we knew that very unfairly and unjustly, her claim for disability had been denied, even though she has brain cancer. This is someone who should be receiving disability. So we were able to connect her with a good law firm who's able to get that overturned. So, but again, as far as I know, any other organization would not have provided free housing and food and utilities for as long as we did. Because again, we are going to work with you. We're going to fight with you. Back to what I said, I don't know what's going to happen, but we're gonna fight with you until we get through this. And that's exactly what has happened with this one family.
Cool. Just backtracking a little bit, you went from a run to this big nonprofit. What were some of the first struggles? Because you said you were still working, you were still have your personal life. What were some of the struggles or obstacles in launching this amazing foundation?
Everything was a struggle in the beginning. I mean, again, from what's an MOU to how are and I've been fortunate now to work. I work with a lot of really talented, successful executives in many different business sectors who have taught me so much, and I read constantly. So it's just learning how to. I mean, everything from finance and accounting to business development to writing MOUs, and really the success of Legacy of Hope is. I tell people, if I take credit, it's for one thing. It's taking the time to surround myself with people who are really passionate about what we're doing and want to support these families like they want their next breath of fresh air. That's where our success has come from. So it was learning how to build teams. Like I said, we've went from. I mean, there's a time in the beginning if a contract had to be reviewed, it wasn't an attorney. It was me going, "Oh, it looks okay, I guess. I'll sign it." And if anything needed to happen with a patient, I was like, "Okay, I'll try to figure out my way between shifts how to do this." We fortunately have people that report to our direct reports. I mean, we've grown substantially. So it was just learning how to grow a team and support them. I've learned the most important thing. I think there's 2 things that are the most important things that I can do is one, it's articulate my vision to a broader group of people to get them to help to see that vision of what Legacy of Hope is and what it can be and what it will be. And then also fully support the talented people that that I work with.
Yeah.
Like Nia, who you just interviewed,
Yeah.
is remarkably talented. And it's making sure she has the resources that she needs to go be a rock star and do what she does.
Yeah.
You know, so I end up, it's almost like I'm in the support role. You know, I've got to get people like Nia and Gina and the many other people who work for Legacy Hope. I got to make sure that they have what they need to do the great things that they do.
Cool. How does a patient get involved with Legacy Hope? Because I know there's probably hundreds and thousands of people out there that need this assistant. How do they get partnered with your organization?
So it's entirely through referrals from oncology social workers.
Okay.
And the reason we do that is that saves us a tremendous amount of time. Again, we're not dealing with you're having a bad day, so we'll get you a nice gift basket. That's fine. We're dealing with the families who their kids are going hungry. Their heat's been shut off in the middle of winter, which technically is illegal, but happens all the time. You know, we've been evicted, things like that. So it's all referral based. We get referrals from every major health system in Philadelphia and now Cooper Health as well here in Camden, because they know the patient on such an intimate basis. They know their financial history, their medical history, their social history. We get an online referral, and now in the most critical cases, within 2 to 3 hours, we can be at that patient's house, or we can have food at that patient's house, or we can connect them with an attorney, an accountant, a counselor, whatever it needs to be. And that's not to say if you said, oh, hey, you know, my neighbor across the street, I think they're really struggling, having a good time. It wouldn't ever be, oh, well, no, because of social work. I say, we'll contact them and find out who their social worker is, because that saves us all the time. Then, because we get that information from the social worker, we don't have to spend a day or weeks getting information from their doctors, their caretakers, their family. We get that referral from this oncology social worker, and we can just hit the ground running.
Nice. Cool. In the beginning, before, did you always have those referrals, or were you always constantly hitting the ground running with all these people needing that assistance?
It was always, and that's where I think my background in the medical field, like I kind of understood at least some of the operations and how that works, and I worked. So it has always been from oncology social workers. It wasn't streamlined in the beginning like it is now. So we're hyper focused on two things. Any sort of support that is urgent, we will do.
Okay.
But we're hyper focused on food insecurity and housing insecurity. And that's because any major city is replete with those two needs.
Nice.
But we just trying to get groceries, and these grocery orders are put together by an oncology dietitian.
Oh, wow.
So we're not giving them hot dogs and ramen, although I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
But it was such a mess in the beginning. Like, we're getting the wrong orders delivered to the wrong place because we didn't have the police involved at first. And we have volunteers at hospitals trying to organize stuff. And then I'm getting angry calls from the hospital, like, you are taking up my staff, way too much of my staff. It was just a mess. And now every month it's probably could be 100 or more patients and or family members that are getting food to just deliver to them, which is it's just streamlined now.
That's awesome. Seeing the organization as it is now, is this something that you saw when it first started, or does it surpass your vision?
I'll give you a little context. And this was, again, attacking things like my vision as a foregone conclusion is so important, because there was too many times it's countless. There's a countless number of times where I realistically, I should have given up. Things weren't working. There was no more money. There was no more time. We hit every conceivable roadblock. But I used to tell people, as like, we are going to be the cancer support, the philanthropy of Amazon. We're going to be like, and people are like, that is ridiculous. And obviously still a long ways to go. But I mean, a couple of years ago, we expanded. I mean, we've been partnered with every major health system now for several years in Philadelphia. We've been partnered with Cooper Health System for about 2 years now. Last year, I was invited and flown out to Chicago to speak at a national oncology conference to talk about the emergency patient support network that we've put together. And we now have considerable. We have a dialogue going and considerable interest with cancer centers across the country that want us to expand our operations to their cities, as far as San Francisco.
That's awesome.
So that's always been my vision. And again, it's the Amazon of philanthropy. That sounds crazy, and to an extent, it is.
Yeah.
But we've had to have that mindset because the problem is too great. The suffering is too great to have a mindset any less than that. People are going to suffer if we don't perform at the highest levels, if we don't do everything that needs to be done, if we don't keep walking, even though we don't know how we're going to get there and it looks like failure is almost inevitable, then people are going to suffer. One of the hardest conversations, I'll ever have with a family is I'll be talking to maybe a father or mother, and they'll say, I've come to terms with my diagnosis. I know I don't have much longer, but having to look across the dinner table again, and usually tears are coming down their eyes, and tell my kids that I'm sorry, we're going to have to go hungry again tonight is just too much to bear. And being able to remove that burden is something I will die fighting for and die working for. As I told you before we started this, I told you, fortunately, as we've grown, every patient interaction I used to, fortunately or unfortunately, I'd be in the middle of it. It was, we're very small. And now I try at least once a month to get involved with patients and we have a wonderful patient support team. They're phenomenal, but that every time I have an interaction with patients again, it really lights a fire under my ass and makes me realize like, this is why we can't ever stop working. We can't, because the suffering is too great.
I love it. Well, I thank you for being here. Three questions I have for that person that wants to start a nonprofit that is going to help as many people as this organization is. What's like I guess a tip or something you would say to them for them starting their journey on that nonprofit?
Start walking forward. Start moving forward. You'll figure it out as you go along. Now, this is a paraphrase, but something Steve Jobs said years ago. It was so pivotal, and I've read this many times. Is a lot of times we can't connect the dots until we're looking back. A lot of times we don't even know what our next step is going to be moving forward, like I said, but you have to keep moving forward, and then it'll all make sense when you look back. So don't wait until, okay, once I learn what an MOU is, I'll do this, or, once I have my team's this big, or once I learn if you do that, you're never going to get started. You've heard people say probably like there's never, I don't have kids, but I've heard many people say there's never a perfect time to have kids. You just need to start your family. There's never a perfect time to start a business, whether it's a nonprofit or for-profit. If you have that desire, and I'm not saying go into things haphazardly, learn as much as you can, talk to people, try to get that person that'll take you under their wing and mentor you, but get started today. And if that's just writing a list down of things that you think are important to start working on tomorrow, let that be your first step, but take the first step today.
I love that. I'm using my cheat sheet. Where do you see Legacy of Hope in the next 5 to 10 years?
We will continue to expand our operations geographically. But ultimately, this will be closer to 5 to 10 years down the road. We're going to expand beyond cancer. What we're doing works exceedingly well for cancer patients and their families, but the systems we have in place with the grocery stores, the attorneys, the hospitals, work just as well for patients that have heart failure, that have diabetes, that have HIV. So you could almost consider this still like a pilot. It's not a pilot, it's working well. But in the near term, we're going to, like I said, we expanded to a couple years ago to Camden. We're working with people. I believe the next city we're going to be in is New York City, and then off from there. But then beyond that, it'll be expanding beyond cancer.
Cool. And then lastly, what is the most rewarding part of leading this organization?
just the relationships I build, like getting to meet people like you who are passionate about stuff, people like Nia, people like Gina. I mean, it goes on and on. Even the patients, as I told you before we started this interview, one of the first patients, Will People, shout out, bro, that we supported, was one of my groomsmen when I got married. It's the people that make this important. There's and even the ones, unfortunately, that don't have a happy ending per se. There was Candace Sayers. She had metastatic renal cell carcinoma. We ended up becoming really, really good friends. And like I'd end up like calling her and she called me probably once a week, and just good friends. And we got off the phone. All right, love you, bro. Love you, sis. And when she passed away, her son called me and asked me to give the eulogy at her, at her funeral. And that was difficult, obviously very difficult, but it's those relationships. It's the relationships with the families we work with, the people I get to work with. Even in we didn't talk our mentorship program, which Nia has done a tremendous job at growing and really supporting these students. We I won't say his first name in case he sees us, but he came in, and we work with like at-risk youth in 7th and 8th grade. He came in 7th grade, and I remember, real cocky, like, I don't give a shit about this. I don't even know why I'm here, but you could see him kind of progress and get excited about things, and went through 7th grade, finished in 8th grade. And as you know, between 8th and 9th grade is a really pivotal year for Philadelphia students, because they have to get into a good high school. And we were on, it was one of the mentorship sessions. We were on Zoom. There's all the kids are together, and I remember, Mr. Rowe, actually, he probably said, Mr. Rowe, you want a breakout room? I said, yeah. I almost said his name. I said, yeah, what's up? And he told me in a breakout room. It was like a proud dad moment. He said, I just wanted you to know that I got in 3 of the 4 high schools I applied to.
Wow.
I talked to one of his teachers a couple weeks later. There's almost in tears. Said, I really thought he was going to be a statistic. Has like no support. Has a really tough home life. Showed no academic interest. Ended up graduating between 8th and 9th with straight A's, doing phenomenal. And it's things like that you carry with you carry forever. Again, there's relationships, whether it be with students or families or anything. So that's what makes it worth it.
Cool. Well, again, I appreciate you coming out and sharing your testimony with this organization. For the person, business, or organization that wants to get involved with Legacy of Hope, how can they reach you?
Mike at legacyofhope.life is my email. You can contact us. Go to our website, legacyofhope.life. Fill out the contact form. If you want to get involved and you're passionate, that's the only thing I say. If you're not passionate, please keep walking. But if you are passionate, again, the need is great. We work with on a daily basis everything from police officers to attorneys to construction workers. If you want to get involved, we have people mentor students every week who are in turn creating partnerships and supporting cancer patients in their own neighborhoods. So if you want to get involved, contact me, contact someone at Legacy of Hope, and get involved. There's an extraordinarily huge number of ways you can get involved.
Sounds good. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. See you on the next one.